Hey guys, what's up? It's Super High Productions. I am Mikey B. I'm here with Live Turkey J, aka Jerry.
Yo, what's up?
Today we're talking about one of the best sci-fi trilogies of all time, Back to the Future.
The classic trilogy from the 80s, Back to the Future, parts 1 through 3.
Yep, we'll be talking about all three of them. It's one of the rare instances where there's a trilogy of movies that are just so perfect, both one, two, and three, and they haven't been touched at all really. No sequels, no prequels, no remakes or rehashes or anything like that. So
Yeah,
we're just
thank
here to talk about
goodness.
our love. Thank goodness, yes.
And hopefully at some point, they probably will try to resurrect Back to the Future and it'll just be, you know, not good like the original movies were. But
Right.
thankfully, that hasn't happened yet.
Thankfully, it hasn't happened, and we can still look back and have a good time with our favorite movies. So let's just talk about them, briefly here, one at a time. In case anyone doesn't know, I'll do a little quick recap on the plot of these movies. So, the first one is about Marty McFly, typical high school kid. He has a friend, old man, Doc Brown, who builds a time machine, just like any typical high school kid. And they're out testing it.
Right?
And
It's just a typical part of your childhood. No
the
big deal.
typical part, that typical, 80s growing up experience, just, living next to a wacky old man scientist and all his funny little tricks that he has. And and he just happens to build a time machine out of a DeLorean. And then they take it for a spin, and then they get interrupted by some terrorists as one of those minor inconveniences of the 80s. Also, just terrorists show up and start shooting at you at the mall. You know, what can be done about it? And Marty goes flying back through time, 1955, where he's a fish out of water, and he accidentally bumps into his parents, which create what we would call now a nexus event, uh, which basically means that he was never born because uh, some shenanigans happen regarding his parents, and now he has to set that straight before he fades
Well,
away from
he has to
reality.
stop. He has to stop the events from occurring that would make it so he was never born. So like he still was, but he still has time to correct it before he was never
Yeah,
born.
there's a little weird timey-wimey gray area where Marty has the ability to set this it's like the space-time continuum gave him a grace period. I was like, "Oh, you screwed up? Well, you have approximately 48 hours to fix such an
Your
event."
objective, should you choose to accept it, is to save your own existence before you're totally wiped out, just erased from existence.
um But yeah, and spoiler alert, he does. But everything is like a really tight to the wire, and yeah, he ends up going back to his present, or some might say back to the future. And that's the first one in a nutshell.
Yeah, I guess Back to the Present doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Yeah, like if the series was called Back to My Former Present,
Right, back to
because I
the starting point to which I once resided.
right
Yeah,
my
it doesn't have quite the ring.
my abode in the time continuum sense or
Yeah, I don't
whatever.
think we would be talking about that trilogy. I don't think it would even be a trilogy if it had a stupid long title like that. But yeah, Back to the Future is pretty catchy. It really, yeah, it rings. Yeah, it kind of goes, huh? What does that mean? So yeah, then you watch it. But I love this movie because it's so stylish. It's so like slick. Marty, his last name is McFly, which you can't get better than that. It's like Scrooge McDuck plus Fly. Like I'm Fly, you're Fly. What's up?
Right, McFly. It's just all the times you hear that is great.
Right? Think, McFly, think. And that's funny because Marty is such a cool guy, but George, his dad, is such a dimwit.
Right, like he's always just like they're there at the dinner table and they're all talking about whatever thing, and George McFly is just over there watching like some silly sci-fi movie or something on TV and just going to himself all the
Right.
time. He's such like a even as an adult, even as a father, he's just such a weird
Yeah.
Weasley kind of a guy.
Weird Weasley kind, and then the mom's kind of like pressing and whatever, and the Marty's siblings are just yuck. Like, um, they're just, I mean, they're not bad people. They're just kind of like his brother works at Burger King or whatever, and sister's kind of like a dope too. So the whole family is kind of losers, except for Marty. Marty, actually, yeah, he has a girlfriend. He has a skateboard. He has a guitar. He's rad,
Typical, 80s guy, or 80s teenager there.
right?
Skateboard, guitar, girlfriend, all check off all the list there.
Check, check, check. And yet he wants a car. He wants a big truck for whatever reason. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, we love this film. Yeah, so it's stylish. It's got great music. Not only like like the 80s style music, Huey Lewis and the News, but also like the 50s music like bum 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 Mr. Sandman, like that. That the old classic, those classic tunes and stuff. And just like the score too, like the Alan Silvestri score that accompanies the movie is just so perfect. It's like part kind of like mysterious. Like sometimes they hit those chimes where it's like, and then there's like then it just goes rocking like dun 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 dun. It really hypes you up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the music and the overall feeling of like the 80s is really well established in the beginning of the movie, and then they go back in time. Marty goes back in time to the 50s. They really nail the whole 50s vibe, from the settings to the music to everything. You know what I mean? I was going to
Yeah,
mention real quick that I like that Einstein, Doc's dog, is the technically the very first time traveler ever. He went into the future like 1 minute or something like
right.
that. I just think that's pretty neat.
Right, yeah, put that in the record book. You're looking through Guinness and it's like, oh, the first, actual live creature to travel through time was a dog named Einstein. I mean, I guess that's like, when they're doing the space race, any kind of like dog or monkey that they shoot up in space was like the first, before they put up a human. So I guess in that way, it's kind of like the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Anything else really stands out to you? What about the villain Biff? What do you have to say about him?
He's really over the top. He's like the classic bully type character. He always appears like bigger and stronger than Marty. And but like at the end he always gets dispatched in like a goofy sort of way, and
Yeah,
it's highly comical. It's a theme that reoccurs throughout the whole
right.
series and stuff like that. Yeah, I like him. He's the type of character that you like, even
Yeah, you love to
you
hate
wouldn't
him.
like him in real life. You'd think he's a
No,
jerk, but it's really entertaining to watch him,
yeah, I love how like big and like aggressive he is, but he's just really stupid. So no one can really take him that seriously. He's like, oh, you're just like a what do you say? Like make like a tree and get out of here. It's like, oh
It's
no, you're
make like a
just like
tree and leave.
Lee, right? Right? He's always messing up like catchphrases and stuff and saying something really stupid. But yeah, he's like the type of guy who straight up, would murder you. He is kind of threatening. He did chase down Marty. But yeah, just cool moments, like one cool moment after another. Like Marty, does skateboarding, like he's, picks on Biff and just goes skating away. And and then he does like a maneuver where he just climbs over Biff's car and Biff runs into the manure. Classic, great. We love a good poop joke. And then at the end where Marty's playing, Johnny Be Good, and then he's just like doing like the Van Halen riffs and stuff, like that's awesome too. And of course, at the end where they man, they always have to like cut it so close. Like the only way he can go back to the future is by catching this lightning bolt, which is like, as anyone's ever tried to catch a lightning bolt, it's kind of hard. So, and he does it, the very last second, just
It's like ironic and like a good thing that he ran into the save the clock tower lady, because otherwise how would any of them know that the lightning bolt is going to be there at that exact day, that exact time, and they need to use it, so Marty can get back to his own time,
right.
whatever. And like that honestly would be kind of cool. That is kind of a thought that crossed my mind. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could go back in time and like invent a genre of music that no one's ever heard of before? Because like obviously, you know,
Yeah,
you
obviously because
you
they've never
you
heard
you
it
played
before.
guitar. Like, if you play guitar now, there's all these different styles of music. You go back in time, you're the pioneer instead of whoever actually played it the first time, so you could do whatever you wanted to do, just like Marty playing Johnny Be Good and shredding all over the place out at everybody.
Right. Yeah, imagine if he stayed in 1955, like he could have been like the biggest hit. People have been like, wow, he's so great. But yeah, he's we'll get more into that when we talk about the next movie. But he's not like the type of person to really capitalize on these kind of things. He's just trying to get home. Oh, also he's trying to save his own save his own existence too. Which he ends up doing. Everything else is kind of like after that point. Like literally, he could have gotten like his mother and father together. He didn't have to play Johnny B. Good, but he decided to, you know what? Let's do something that really cooks, and he played that. And I'm like, no, you have to get back to the DeLorean. What about the Thunderbolt? But yeah,
Yeah.
they really do create like a lot of tension in this movie, and even if you've watched it like a million times, you're still sweating seeing Doc pull the little cord, back and trying to like connect it, and it's not connecting quite, and
It
it's
is
like,
kind of a hard scene to watch because you're just like, no, no, don't like unplug. It gets unplugged or the tree falls on it or
yeah,
whatever, and Doc's like, ah. It's great.
right.
It's great though, like
It's
all the
it's
way
great
through and through.
all the way through. So then, just like anything they came up with a sequel, they said at the end to be continued, right? And it led, a lot of people thought, okay, they're obviously they have sequels in the works, but the guy who made it, Robert Zemeckis, was like, no, we just kind of thought like that would be a funny little thing to put at the end, to be continued, you know. But then, yeah, the studio, Universal, so they were like, let's make some more of these. So then they made two and three like back to back because they were a big hit, and they didn't disappoint. Like they could have like just been like the flavor of the month, like, oh, let's go to the '60s, let's go to the '70s or whatever. But no, like they really did some innovative new things, and not everyone loves the sequels that much, but I think that they're great, and I really love number two.
Yeah, I like them. I
Yeah,
like all three of them. Yeah,
yeah,
and I really like number two because it's kind of wacky that they invent, what the future will be, kind of based on 80s technology, and it's
yeah.
pretty funny to see what they come up with.
Right. So let's recap real quick for anyone who doesn't know about Back to the Future Part Two. But this is where Doc says to Marty, he says at the end of the first one and the beginning of this one, says, Marty, let's go to the future. Your kids are wild. We need to straighten them out. So they go into the future, they try to straighten out Marty's kids. Of course, Marty gets himself into some sort of shenanigans always. He finds like a sports almanac, and he has the bright idea like, hey, we can go back in time, we can place a couple bets, make a couple dollars on the side. Doc's like, this goes against my principles, and he throws away the magazine. But who's around? Old man Biff crawling around like some sort of like old skeezer, and snatches up the magazine and steals the DeLorean somehow.
Classic Biff family tactics.
Yeah,
Like I love that everyone in like the Biff, what Biff Tannen is his
Tannen, yeah, the
name.
Tannen
Yeah,
family.
the Tannen. Everyone in the Tannen family is like a crook and a criminal. You know.
Yeah, it's unescapable. It just runs in their blood that they're just, and it's funny because Biff had some sort of a redemption, not really a redemption, but like they changed the timeline. So when in the first one, Biff was kind of like, he was like a bully even as an adult. But then when Marty went back in time, he became like the shoe shining boy. He's out there spit shining like the car and whatever. And he's kind of like the Weasley one. But in the second one, he still has like a little bit of a rough edge, and he's like, what's going on? DeLorean, flying DeLorean, And now as an old man, he kind of reverts back to those bully ways, his grifting ways. And so, yeah, so he takes the almanac back to 1955, gives it to his younger self, says, "You better play some bets." And then Marty and Doc, they go back in time to 1955 after they retrieve Jennifer because Jennifer just ran amok in the future. I don't know why they even brought her. They even talk about that in the movie. They're like, "Why'd you even bring her?" Well, she saw the DeLorean. I couldn't just leave her there with that information. Well, why not? Just say like, "Hey,
Yeah,
go away, Jennifer.
that's
This doesn't concern you."
that's Doc's DeLorean. There you go. End of the story.
Yeah.
See you
End of the
later.
story. See you later, alligator. But yeah, then they go back to 1985, but it's an alternate reality, which I like. I think that's like one of the first movies that kind of like explores like what happens if you really change like the timeline. So now they're in this alternate uh just dystopian kind of future where Biff controls Hill Valley. Maybe he controls the whole world. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but he definitely has run the town into the ground, and they have to investigate like what happened here. Obviously, the whole almanac situation. They go back to 1955 to correct this mistake. Spoiler alert: they do, but in the process, Doc Brown gets flung back into the past, setting up part three, and Marty is left scratching his head. But yeah, it's
What a
great because
mess.
what a mess, what a mess. I love it though because like you said, it takes place in the future. Like the first third of it is in the future, bright kind of sunny future with technologies kind of based on what 80s people thought the future would be like. So you have things like fax machines everywhere. You have like I don't know, like gas stations. Even though like I mean we still have gas stations obviously, but
Got the
like I would
like virtual reality goggles and
write
whatever.
virtual reality goggles instead of like some other thing because like now that we've kind of lived through these experiments with like virtual reality and whatever, we're like we don't want that. I mean, yeah, some people are out there playing their Oculus and whatever, but most of us were like, yeah, we don't want that.
Not not all the time, like not as much as they made it seem like it was going to be a household thing. It's like an
Right.
acquired taste kind of thing.
Then they have like the hydration machine or whatever where you have to hydrate a pizza. Hydrate level 3, please. And the pizza comes out like that's not even a thing. What were they thinking?
Yeah. Some of it's just goofy, but it's, still it makes for an entertaining and like funny parts of the movie.
Yeah.
See what they came up with.
Some of it's not too far off. Like Marty's got a TV in his living room, and it's like voice controlled, and you can kind of do that now. There's TVs that kind of link up to smart speakers and whatever. And then they have like the picture in picture, and he puts on like he's like channel 3, channel 17, channel 92, channel 21, and the weather channel, please. And then they all kind of pop up. Uh, I feel like that's doable. I don't know why you'd want to watch all those channels at once, but I guess that speaks to our limited attention spans and stuff.
Right. Like watching them all and then like which one would you want to listen to? Are you going to just listen to all of them at the same time? It was
I mean,
just a
I've
big
multitasked
mess.
like that sometimes. Lord knows that sometimes I'm playing Jackbox games with my friends while I'm playing Overwatch on my TV, while I'm also trying to listen to some other guy stream on Twitch, while I'm also trying to text somebody. It's like
Right, but I mean like all on the same TV though.
yeah,
Like you're doing multitasking things on like different devices, but like all on the
yeah,
same screen. It's like yeah, but yeah, like it's kind of real.
yeah.
What was in the movie with all the different channels. That's
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, it's kind of possible. Yeah, but yeah, it's always interesting to see what people think the future would be. I do like it that this is not like a kind of a dark like Blade Runner type thing because or some other kind of like futuristic. It's kind of is somewhat grounded a little bit. I do like the Jaws. Was it Jaws 19, like the big 3D shark?
I was just gonna mention that if you didn't mention it.
Oh yeah.
I like that you're just walking around and you get like a big holographic jaws popping out at you. I feel like that actually be kind of cool. It'd be weird the first time, like when it happens to Marty, he's like scared of it, but I think that'd actually be kind of cool. But there's nothing really like that,
No,
you know,
nothing. But I mean,
nowadays.
they do have. They did predict like all these sequels. Not like not Jaws per se, but like man, you look at Fast and the Furious, they're up to 9 already. So, they're about ready to pump out a few more. But but yeah, like so they had a nice bright future, but it's a good contrast to like the dark present, alternate present that they go back to, which is like worn out and depleted, run down, uh gangs everywhere. I like it that the principal's out there with like a machine gun or whatever.
Right.
And
It's
then
pretty dark.
it's pretty dark. And then of course at the tippy top of it all, the big boss man in charge is Biff, who's running a casino. He's like he has all these biker gangs hanging out. It's just a downright dirty place to live.
Right. Hill Valley. More like Hell Valley, like
So
Doc
says
says.
Doc.
Yeah.
Doc coming in with the jokes. Um, but yeah,
I
as
like all the different time traveling they do in the second movie. They don't, do as much of that in the first and third
the
movie. So
third, yeah,
I feel like number 2 kind of might even be my favorite. It might be the best of the
yeah,
trilogy,
because
I
they really
think.
do a lot. Like they travel to the future, they travel to 1985, then they travel to 1955 again, and then Doc gets zapped to 19 or 18. Was it 1855? The Old West.
Yeah. It's like 1985, 1955, 1885. It's always like the 5, the
Yeah,
year of the
five.
fives.
And then of course, yeah, and then they get the almanac back from Biff, or whatever, and then they go like, we have to go to 1955 to make sure this never happens. And then that's where you get like this like really like bizarre like overlapping like thing, because it's kind of like the first movie, except from a different point of view. You're looking at Marty, he's over here, but then there's the other Marty, like like movie Marty is over here like doing his thing, and then there's like this Marty number two. It's like this whole bizarre thing that you have to be very intellectual to wrap your mind around, but I love it.
Right.
They have to make sure they don't bump into their past selves, Marty or Doc, which they both kind of do. Doc has a scene where he interacts with his past self, but then again, this is a Doc from the future, so he looks kind of older, and he kind of has like his trench coat up, and he's like, "Oh, here you go. Here's your 3/4 eight, wrench or whatever." So
Right. Like he knows that that's Doc, but the other Doc doesn't really know. So I guess the universe is only like half crumbled or whatever the law is that you can't interact with your past self or whatever it is.
right, yeah.
Only
So
half crumbled.
it's only half crumbled. Yeah, because that happened with Jennifer too. Like, because they're like, oh, Jennifer can't see herself, or else it could cause a paradox. But it didn't. It just caused them to pass out. Oh, I'm young, I'm old, and then they pass out. So who knows what?
Yeah.
I think Doc would have been like, great Scott in stereo. Like, I think that's what would have happened.
Right.
Yes. And then yeah, and then we have Marty, running away from other Marty, trying to, because he's running away from the bullies. He has to make sure he doesn't, bump into himself. He gets the magazine back, but it turns out to be Ooh La La, and from Biff, and then Biff ends up in more manure, or whatever. So that guy just can't catch a break.
Right. You just can't stay away from this stuff apparently.
Anything else you want to say about Back to the Future Part Two?
No, I think you pretty much got it. I just
Okay.
kind of wish I was able to brush up on the movies a little bit more. I was looking into it, but I couldn't find a way to stream any of them, and I wasn't trying to pay like
Oh yeah, no,
four
that's okay.
bucks to rent each movie. But yeah, no, we got it.
We got it. Okay. And then of course we have the third one, which is all about trains and the Wild West
Wild, wild, old west with trains.
with trains. Yeah. And not much can, like just to summarize real quick, it's like Marty goes back to the 1800s to save Doc from getting shot by another Tannen, a grumpy old Tannen. And then they're like, okay, well, let's get out of here, but we don't have gas, and so they have to, Jimmy rig a way to get back to the future again, and yeah,
I will
so it's
say
like,
it's kind of weird that they chose the old west as kind of the theme of this movie because it doesn't really seem like at that time, old west movies were necessarily popular, but I guess that's kind of what they wanted to do, you
yeah.
know.
I mean, I guess it makes sense from like maybe Doc's point of view, because again, like we talked about this earlier before our video, but like I feel like a lot of this movie, even though Marty is the main character, like it is kind of like from Doc's point of view because he's the one that created the time machine. He's the one that kind of set the parameters. Like he set like, like hey, I want to go to 55, or I want to go to 2015 or whatever to see the future. He's like the one that set those times in there. He's the one explaining alternate timelines. And then, he's the one that's like, um, that says, I want to get you back to the future. Like to Marty, it's the present, but for Doc, it's the future. So it
Yeah.
it is kind of like, yeah, from weirdly from his point of view too. But oh well. But yeah,
It's
they
a
they
lot.
save Marty, or well, yeah, Doc saves Marty, Marty saves Doc, and then they have a big hootenanny in the square, the town square. What do you think about like the old west setting? Oh, the reason I said, oh yeah, yeah, this Doc that wanted to go to the old west because he's like a child from like I mean, he's not really a child from the 50s, but old west movies were more popular back in Doc's day than they were in Marty's day. But anyway, what do you think about the
Right.
old west
Like it's
setting?
just kind of like a retro theme. It kind of seems like, but it's cool. It's fine. It's kind of fun to see Marty go into the town and like go into the saloon or whatever and sit at the bar, and then he gets challenged to like a gunfight or whatever, and it looks like he's just gonna get killed out in the old west somewhere. But then you know it's Back to the Future and other things happen. I don't even remember like what happened with that duel. Marty just ended up running away or something, didn't he?
No, Marty had he put like a piece of iron in his clothes. So yeah, he got
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
so he had like the bulletproof vest, which is funny because he got the idea from Biff, who was watching an old Clint Eastwood movie in his hot tub in the second movie, and then Biff's like, "Oh, bulletproof vest, classic Clint Eastwood or whatever." So, and then yeah, and then of course Marty has to use the fake name Clint Eastwood, so no one knows that he's a McFly.
I feel like I remember the least amount of things from the third one. I remember the first and second one pretty well.
Yeah, the third one I feel like kind of gets skipped over a lot. Like it's a good film, but like when people are like really watching like Back to the Future, like the first two really kind of tie into each other like really well, and then the third
Mm-hmm.
one, it barely has any ties to like the 50s or the 80s. And it's really all about the old west, which is not like a lot of people don't. I don't know. I don't think like a lot of people really care about the old west, especially now this day and age. So it's kind of boring to them. But
Right. Like a lot of the third movies and series kind of suffer from that. Like even like with something like the original Star Wars trilogy, lots of people think that Return of the Jedi is kind of lackluster compared to the first two. So that's like I feel like
yeah,
that
that's kind of like
happens
the curse
all
of
the
like the,
time.
the third movie. It's kind of like
Yeah.
at this point we've seen it, like this sort of thing happen, two times in a row. And so it's like, okay, let's see if this third one holds up. And I think it holds up. I think it's really, really good. Like there's
Yeah, I
great
thought it was
chemistry.
a good movie.
Doc actually has some a love interest in this movie, and he kind of is going through some of the same sort of challenges like that Marty had to go through. And Marty's more of like the responsible one in this one, and Doc's just kind of like trying to like still try to stay in the old 1800s and live out his the rest of his days there and whatever. But Marty's like, no, you got to be realistic. He's like, I can't leave Clara, and they inadvertently save her from untimely death. She was supposed to die in the original timeline. She was supposed to die, but they changed history to save her. So it's like Doc already has broken his cardinal rule of like interfering with the past. So
He's been a bad Doc.
been a
He
bad
did.
Doc.
He gave in to his selfish desires, but I mean, oh well. He's the guy who invented the time machine, so as long as time isn't broken for everybody, does it? Whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that much.
And then she goes wild and chases them down, and they they get Marty back to the future, and Doc and Clara live out the rest of their days in the past. And I guess Griff Tannen, he gets humiliated enough where he doesn't want to kill Doc anymore, and it's a happy ending. And it's like it's just funny how Marty goes back to 1985 and he's just on the train tracks, and then like a friggin' real train just comes and plows the DeLorean, just smashes it to smithereens, and then like there goes. This is basically like Robert Zemeckis, the director. He knew like no more Back to the Future. Snap. No more time travel. Snap. Like we're not
Yeah.
doing any more of these. No more DeLoreans.
But
But
then you
of
got
course,
the time traveling train, that Doc has too. So
right. Which they could have had like anything. Like they could have like had a letter or something again. And Doc said, "Don't worry, Marty. I lived out the rest of my days in the Old West, and here's a picture of my kids, and yada yada." But no, it's like Doc has to come with this train, and he's like, "These are my two sons," and like, how
the
how
big
did
old
Doc
train mobile.
how did Doc invent a time traveling train? Like that's just it's baffling to me, but whatever. And then why would he do it? He always said
Don't
that he didn't.
question Doc. He
Don't
can do
question. No,
anything.
I'm not questioning Doc. No, you can't question Doc.
He's
He's the supreme
unquestionable.
authority on the subject. You don't question
Yeah.
Doc. But yeah, okay. So that kind of wraps up the Back to the Future trilogy. Uh, do you want to see a fourth one?
Not today. Yeah, I wanted to talk about like our speculations of like what year it would have been sweet, like the cutoff year, what year we kind of would want to see a fourth one. And like you said, you know, it ended well. Like it was a trilogy of movies, which is like a good place to end off the series. But like if there was a fourth one, I think that the cutoff year should have been like 1994, because I noticed this recently as the 90s kind of went along. Movies kind of got sillier and sillier and sillier. And then in the 2000s, there's some good movies, and movies kind of, and some movies, kind of got away from the silliness. But obviously, as time goes on, movies get more and more modern. And
Yeah,
no, I don't want to see a modern Back to the Future in this day and age. But if we had gotten a Back to the Future 4 by around 1994, I think that would have been perfect.
yeah, that would have been okay with me if they would have kept like the train, no pun intended, like going. Like they could have. It wouldn't have been a trilogy. It would have been a series. But I don't know what that fourth one would have been like. Like I guess now that Doc's back and Marty's back and they have like the time traveling train. Do you think like Doc would just keep inventing other time vehicles? Like they'd have like the time traveling hot air balloon and the time traveling jet ski
The,
and
the time traveling skateboard, like he just turns Marty's skateboard into a time traveling machine.
right
And he just skating along, like, or no, his hoverboard, even
his
better, like
hoverboard. Yep, he has the time
time
traveling
machine.
hoverboard.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool to like, since, so in the first movie they go back in time. They go from 1985 to 1955. The second movie, they go into the future, 2015. Then they go way far into the past in the third one. I think it'd be cool if they kind of followed that format, and in the fourth one they went way far into the future to like the year 3000, where everything is so different, like the
3,000.
the year the entire planet is like a gigantic city, and also humanity has moved on to other planets and like settled there. And hopefully it's not, I kind of envision it two ways. Either it's kind of kind of like the second movie, how everything's fine and it's not like a destroyed world, desecrated desert type planet. Like that would be cool if they went that way, but it'd also be cool if they went with the desolated planet where like humanity has like ceased to exist for a long time, and they're like, we can't let humanity die, so let's go back to the point, like from the future, the far future that they went to, let's go back to a point where we can save humanity from itself somehow. And then
Somehow.
they do their classic shenanigans to, save humanity, I guess, and restore the planet or whatever they got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be like and it'd be funny if it was like some sort of just wacky thing, like not like a virus or climate change, but it's like some sort of like stupid, uh, I don't know, like some sort of like people were drinking Slurm.
Like you said one time, it's kind of just like Wall-E, you know.
Yeah,
There's no humanity. Humanity's on a ship somewhere, or it's just humanity's just gone. Well, however it
I think it'd be
happened.
funny if there was like remnants of humanity, but everyone was just like some sort of hideous mutant or something like that. And it was just like, how did we get like this? Or it was like, or even worse, everyone turned into like such a phony baloney like Kardashian type person, where it's like even Doc. I almost called him Mock. Doc and Marty. Doc and
Ma-
Marty.
Mock sounds like an unholy like fusion of Doc and Marty,
Yeah,
or
Mock.
Marty and Doc. It's Mock.
Mock McBrown over here. Um, like are looking at humanity. They're like, no, this is too much. We've gone too far. Everyone's got high cheekbones and like plastic faces and stuff, and everyone's so artificial. It's like like with Darth Vader, they say he's more machine than man now. It's like these people that are more plastic than human now.
Right. Well, I mean, that would pretty much be turning them into like cyborgs. Like they were human and then they slowly became more robotic. Or are you just talking about they just went crazy with plastic surgery?
I'm talking about they went crazy with plastic surgery.
That's kind of a funny way to take it. I could kind of see that. Humanity just strives to look, prettier and prettier all the time. So they just, they're mostly plastic, no flesh left.
Yeah, but then there's like super artificial in like other ways, like not like seriously artificial, but like um like their mindset, their personalities, they're just so phony baloney. They're so fake, and they're always on social media. I mean, kind of like how it is now, but like to the extreme.
Yeah. Well, they'd only need to go into the future another like 5 years.
Yeah,
So it'd be like Back to the Future, and well, it'd be like 4 years. So Back to the Future in 2025. That's pretty much where we'll be.
right. But yeah, speaking of social media, please don't forget to subscribe to Super High Productions and
On that very dark and depressing note, don't forget to subscribe and
and like the
turn on that
video.
bell. Yeah, like the video.
Yeah,
We'd appreciate it.
you can catch Jerry on Live Turkey J on Twitch. He'll be streaming some games. You can catch me at Famous Mikey B on Twitch and Instagram and all that good stuff. So anyway, anything else you want to say about the Back to the Future trilogy?
We got it. We did it.
We did it, gang.
So, yep. Thank you very
Oh,
much for watching this very long Back to the Future video. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Mikey B, for coming on and chatting with me about Back to the Future,
of
and
course.
we'll see you guys next time.
Okay, bye bye.